Okay, we will go ahead and start now. Thank you very much for joining us today. Good afternoon and welcome to the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration and the Mine Safety and Health Administration Workers' Memorial Day Ceremony. It is my pleasure to introduce the U.S. Air Force Honor Guard for the presenting of our nation's colors. Please rise as members of our D.C. Labor Chorus sings our national anthem. Thank you. Please be seated. We want to thank the U.S. Air Force Honor Guard and the Department of Labor Choir for joining us this year and beginning our ceremony today. Thank you to all of you that are joining us. Today we have over 100 family members here in person and hundreds more that are joining us virtually across the country. My name is Tanya Ford, and I am OSHA's National Family Liaison. But even more importantly, I am a proud family member of a fallen worker, like many of you here today. Today I stand before leaders, safety advocates, employers, employees, union brothers and sisters, members of our community, and of course, all the family members from across the country, to honor, recognize, and remember the men and women that went to work and were fatally injured due to an occupational incident, illness, or disease, never having the chance to come home to their families. We know and understand that every worker has the right to come home safe. Yet sadly, approximately 15 workers each day are fatally injured due to a tragic work incident. Some tragedies you hear about on your local national news, and others you may never have heard about. Regardless, the tragic and unexpected loss impacts those left behind. Over the last 15 years, I have been blessed to connect with families from across the U.S. I have heard their stories and the impact each loss has had on their families. A message that echoed throughout each of the families. Don't forget my husband. Don't forget my mom. Don't forget my dad. don't forget my baby. Each of our fallen workers is so much more than an incident. They are those who listened to their grandparents as they shared life lessons. They were those that just grabbed their high school diploma and had dreams and goals they longed to reach. They were those that went to every school program, no matter how many hours they worked that day, to cheer on their child. They were those that made plans to retire soon and see the world with their soulmate. They were those that would laugh and create those special memories. They were those that were there for you always through those sibling bonds. They were those that you could always count on. They were those that may just have made you shake your head in disbelief because they were the outgoing, adventurous, unpredictable individuals that lived spontaneously. They are our husbands, our wives, our fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, grandparents, aunts, uncle. They were your children. They are your everything, and they were the ones who made your family whole. Today, as we come together, we honor, recognize, and remember your loved ones, and to tell you that your loved one will never be forgotten. It is now my honor to introduce our first speaker, Mine Safety and Health Administration Assistant Secretary Christopher Williamson.
So I want to start out first by thanking Tanya, not just for the introduction, but for all the work that made today possible, and for all the work that she does with all the families that are here today. She said, I'm Chris Williamson. I'm the Assistant Secretary of Labor for Mine Safety and Health. I come from a mining family and a mining community in southern West Virginia. And I was fortunate enough to join OSHA leadership earlier and spend some time with the families that are here today. And some of you I spent time with last year, and I remembered your stories. And I appreciated you sharing them today. And one of the interesting things, just, sitting there on the stage and listening to you all, there were a lot of things that went through my head during that period of time, but hearing those of you that I heard from last year that are taking leadership roles in the organization and, encouraging others to speak, and you stood up and started sharing your story, and then next thing you know, all the different hands were going up, and others, even if they were emotional and even said in the beginning, I don't know if I can do this. Well, they got through it, right? Because everybody was in that room and wanted to hear what they had to say and wanted to give them the opportunity to share their story and to talk about their loved one. And so I really appreciate having the opportunity to be in that room and to spend some time with you all and to hear all that. Because I was actually talking to Tanya about this out in the hallways afterwards. And, at these types of events, it's always challenging. Like, finding the right words is always challenging. And I think some of you even sort of struggled with that a little bit as you were trying to share your story with us. And I think the word I probably settled on was impactful. Last year I was fortunate enough to be a part of this event, and this is an event that I think is one of the most important days that we have at the Department of Labor all year. And certainly for me, it is one of the most impactful days. And I just wanted to say to the families, I really appreciate you coming here today. I remember us being in a much smaller room last year and spending time and hearing your stories, and the growth of this event and the number of families that are participating. And I just can't say thank you enough to those of you that are here. I've never lost a loved one in a workplace accident. but I come from a community where, unfortunately, that's happened way too frequently, and there are a number of stories of, how it's affected families, and so I've seen its impact, and that's part of what motivates me to do the work that I do, to run the agency that I run, that tries to keep the miners of this country safe and healthy every day. And so being able to spend some time with you, part of what we're here today to do is to support you, to let you know that your loved one isn't a number, not at this Department of Labor. I can assure you that. And that, like I said, we're here to support you. We're here to listen, and we're here to learn and to do what we can as public servants to try to prevent other things from happening to other families. And that's the job that we have. And like I said, it's a very impactful day for me. I'm usually pretty motivated. Most of the people here in this department can tell you that I'm very passionate about my job and the work I do. But this event, I guess reinvigorate is probably the right word. Like if I need reinvigorating, this event reinvigorates me and gives me a little bit more to get up in the morning and do the work that I do, and support. Really what I do is support the work that all the MSHA employees do. And I have it in here in my notes, and there's probably some other places to talk about it. I want to talk about them for a minute, though, because they live in the mining communities where the mining goes on in this country. A lot of them, I can't tell you the number of them, have told me stories that they came to work to my agency because they had a coworker, they had a loved one, or someone that either was in an accident or died in an accident. They had a loved one suffer from black lung disease, or they live in the communities. They're former miners themselves, a lot of them, especially the inspectors that go out and do the work, and they feel very passionate about the work that they do. And they get up every day and do really hard work to try to protect lives. And so I want you to know a little bit about our employees and what they get up and do every day. I wanted to share that, as I said, this is an impactful day for me, and I've been to similar events, including in the last 6 months. And you may hear a little bit from President Roberts, who we're very fortunate to have with us here today, talking a little bit about the Farmington disaster that happened in my home state of West Virginia. And every year, the mine workers have a memorial service there in north central West Virginia, and I was able to go. Usually there's someone from MSHA leadership who attends, and I was able to go this past year, and we were just talking about it, and the families and that happened in the late 60s, and the families that still show up for that event, and children and that are grown and have their own families that that lost fathers and brothers, and they still get together every year for that service, and the mine workers help put that together. I was also so the last big mining disaster that happened in this country was Upper Big Branch, and 29 coal miners in West Virginia unfortunately went to work that day and didn't come home. And so there are memorial services every April for Upper Big Branch, and I was fortunate enough to be able to attend the one in Beckley, West Virginia that happened not that long ago, a few weeks ago. And I attend those things for a few reasons. One, as I just said, they're impactful to me, but also I think it's important for people in my position to do what we're all doing here today, which is to show up and let people know that people haven't been forgotten, that people aren't a number, that loved ones aren't, that people are still trying to make places safer and healthier because of what may have happened, or that there was an unfortunate incident that happened that took a life or lives. And so I thought a little bit more about and then I looked, I saw that I'm near the top of the schedule here today, and what can I say here, right? And I think I've already said a few things, but to just underscore, we care. I care, my agency cares, this department cares, my friends at OSHA care, and this administration cares. And, I said this again, but it bears repeating. We want to support you. And, like I said, the growth of this event and thank you again to Tanya for your work, and not just today in putting this together, but all throughout the year and all the work you do. We're here to support you, not just today, but other days all throughout the year. And you inspire us, right? We have jobs where we're supposed to look out for the safety and health of the nation's workers, and in particular, my agency and my job is specific to minors. But you all inspire us to protect others, and there are others that are out there and throughout this country going to work every day who are safer and healthier because you came here today and because you talked to us and shared information. And I guess one of the last things I want to say, and I heard a number of people in the room talk about, this shouldn't have happened, this was preventable, I want to do something about it, I don't want this to happen to someone else, right? So the other thing I want to share with you is to keep fighting. And there's as I said earlier, I'm from southern West Virginia, and there's a famous labor leader who spent a lot of time in southern West Virginia and did a lot of work with the mine workers named Mother Jones. And she has a quote that is, "Pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living." And so in the spirit of keep fighting, I would encourage you to keep fighting, right? Keep moving forward. Keep pushing for safer, healthier workplaces. Keep pushing for better laws. Keep pushing for, things to just make a difference, right? And I want to talk a little bit about a couple things at MSHA, and then I'm going to turn it over because I think I may already be over time, but I want to just say a couple things here. One is that, on the MSHA side, and there's this saying, and it's very unfortunate, but it's true, is that the laws that created my agency and the laws that are currently in place today, and is that those laws are written in the blood of minors. And it's a little bit graphic, but it's true. And my agency has the tools and the regulations and the law because of that. Because unfortunately, thousands of minors died in this country from workplace incidents and also through the development of occupational illnesses. And that's how the modern regulatory scheme in mining came about. So last year, the mining industry experienced 40 fatalities, which was an increase and kind of shocked the conscience of everyone in the mining community. And I use the word community because that brings in everybody: industry, labor, MSHA, miner advocates, everybody that's interested in the safety and well-being of the nation's miners. And we did a number of things, and we've worked with everybody in the community. And one of the things I wanted to share with this group is and knock on wood, and I don't want to say a whole lot other than this year things are trending in a much more positive direction. And I think that's a testament to everybody working together to live up to what our law says, which is the first priority and concern of everybody in the mining industry doesn't say it's a good idea or we ought to think about it. It says must be the safety and health of the industry's most precious resource, which is the miner. And I think it's everybody working together towards that common vision and common goal. And so at this same point, so the mining industry has experienced 4 fatalities so far this year, and that's still 4 too many. But that's also 13 less than where we are at this point last year. And what I'm going to continue to keep saying and ask everybody to join us in doing is to remain vigilant, and let's try to have the year continue on that trend. And so the other thing I just want to mention real quick is last week was a big week for us at MSHA. We promulgated a regulation, a final silica rule that is going to protect what we've estimated save over 1,000 lives. And I want to underscore too today that everyone that has lost their life as a result of an occupational illness, we need to be thinking about them today too. And our agency and the promulgation of this more protective standard is going to help prevent occupational disease and illness that are going to save lives. And I wanted to underscore that today too. And just share that, you know, I mentioned our employees earlier, right? And we do have the Mine Act, and we do have regulations, and our employees are the guardians of that act. And with that comes a lot of responsibility. And, you know, we're going to continue to do the work that we can do every day to try to protect the safety and health of the nation's miners and live up to what, you know, Congress has instructed all of us to do. And I just want to thank you all again. Thank you for, you know, inspiring all of us. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for sharing your stories. And just really thank you for letting us spend some time with you, and just appreciate you so much. Thank you. That's right. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Well, I'm going to give you at least a little bit of an introduction, right? I mean, Doug may be a person who you know, no introduction is needed, but I'll give him a little bit of one. And so Doug is Doug's not only just a colleague of mine, but he's a friend. And I can tell you that nobody cares more about the safety and health of the nation's workforce than Doug Parker. And Doug used to work at MSHA, and I talked a little bit about Upper Big Branch, and Doug was in the middle of it as an MSHA employee. And so he's compassionate, he cares, he's a public servant, and somebody that I'm proud to call my friend. So I want to introduce and bring up my good friend, Doug Parker, the Assistant Secretary of OSHA.
Good afternoon. Good morning for those of you who are joining us virtually from the West Coast. I want to thank you all for being here. This is a day that holds significant meaning. Not only is a day that we remember, on which we remember fallen workers, but to also remember the ones who've been left behind. It's significant because we're also joined by so many family members who traveled from all over the nation here today to honor their loved ones. Nikisha Odom is here from New Jersey to honor her daughter, Jamira Odom. Nikisha felt today's event was so important that she brought 20 family members and friends here to join her, provide her with support. I don't see him, but I know he's here. There's also Vinny Balthazar. He's upstairs, okay. Well, he's in the building today, and he's been with us all week, who had this day circled on his calendar to travel here today to join his mother, Stacy, so they could pay tribute to his brother, Mitchell, who you'll hear from Stacy later. Mitchell died in a tragic agricultural incident. You know, I started looking over my speech last night. I had just put my 2 kids to bed and celebrated my daughter's 6th birthday. And I turned on the computer to look at what had been written, and I had to turn it off. I couldn't spend time contemplating death after that joyful moment that we all might otherwise take for granted. To think about a life without one of them, or to think about them having to grow up without me or my wife, was just too much. And yet, we had the profound honor to hear from families today who had the courage to come here and speak up about exactly what that feels like and exactly what it means to deal with that loss and to move on. And I just can't tell you how amazed I am at your courage. When we do rules at OSHA and other agencies too, we have to do this economic analysis that's part of how we factor in whether or not a rule makes sense. And a component of that is determining how many lives you're going to save, and in dollars, what is called the statistical value of life. It helps us understand. It's a useful tool at understanding the costs and benefits of a rule. But I can tell you right now, there is no tool, there's no formula, there's no analysis that can adequately measure the pain of the loss, the unexperienced contributions and joys that we have to experience and we have to lose when a loved one is taken from us. There's three things that stood out for me from that incredible meeting I had listening to families tell their stories today. Other than the obvious pain, grief, anger. One was that just how many workers who died were worried about health and safety on the job before it happened. Their families knew, their coworkers knew, their bosses certainly knew. One worker had predicted exactly how he would die on the job. And sadly, it happened. Now, they may not have known all the OSHA rules and regulations, but these families knew what I think is perhaps the strongest predictor of a future tragedy on the job. They knew that in that workplace, safety culture was broken or it simply didn't exist. The second thing, and this was hard to hear, was just how many people in that moment of loss or in the weeks and months followed felt alone and forgotten. And I want to say you are not alone and you are not forgotten and your loved ones are not forgotten. We have to be there for each other as communities. Unions have to be there when they lose a sister or brother. Employers have to have the guts to be there even when it's hard, when a worker loses their life. We have to be there for the people who are left to pick up the pieces. And then the third thing, which was really so hopeful and gratifying, was just how many people wanted to be part of the change. How many people did not want to let their loved ones die in vain. And I shared this with the folks in the room, and I'll say it again for everybody to hear. I had the honor of working for the late Senator Paul Wellstone, who himself died some 20 years ago in a plane accident going to northern Minnesota to talk to steel workers in the taconite mines there. And when I took this job, a friend of mine sent me this poster with a quote from him. And it's hanging by my door. And I see it when I come in every morning, I see it when I leave. It says, "Significant social change comes from the bottom up, from an aroused opinion that forces our ruling institutions to do the right thing." And the message I gave to the families and the message I'll give to everyone today, you're not alone, and never stop pushing for us, for the states, for police, for fire inspectors, for the county, for employers. Never stop pushing for us to do the right thing. We can't feel the pain that you're feeling, the emotional burden, but we hope today brings you one step closer to healing. We owe it to those who we lost and everyone in today's workforce to ensure that good jobs are safe jobs where everyone has the confidence that they will return home unharmed at the end of the day. we also want to give people the confidence to speak up when they know that something's wrong at work. Said before, but I'll say it again to Tanya Ford, who's really been a force of nature in making this event happen and making us put families at the forefront of what we do and remembering them and giving them a platform where they can speak truth to power about the importance of change and the importance of never letting this happen again for other families. So thank you again for joining us today. I have two instructions. One is video and the other is video. Okay. So it is now my privilege to introduce a video message from Acting Secretary Julie Sue. I have worked with Julie for years. She hired me to be the head of California OSHA, and now have the honor of working with her again, and she's a true champion of workers' rights. And I know she felt terrible that she couldn't be here today because last year was so moving for her. But she remains committed to worker justice and ensuring that workers are protected on the job. So with that, I'll introduce the video.
Each year, we commemorate Workers' Memorial Day to remember all working men and women who lost their lives on the job. We mourn not only for them, but also with those left behind, their families, friends, co-workers, and communities. It is in their memory and all workers who tragically died for just doing their jobs, like the 6 workers who lost their lives in the recent collapse of the bridge in Baltimore, that we continue to fight for every worker's right to come home healthy and safe at the end of the workday. In 2022, 5,486 workers lost their lives. This means that in the United States, a worker died every 96 minutes. For Black workers, the fatality rate increased by 12.4% in 2022. And for Latino workers, the fatality rate grew by 10.4%. So many of these tragic losses could have been prevented if health and safety standards had been followed, and if the workers who are most at risk of fatal injury and illness were a priority. At the Department of Labor, we have expanded our work to support the people who are disproportionately affected by injuries and illness while on the job. We're making mental health a priority to cut down on the risk of work-related drug overdoses and suicide. We also want all workers to know their rights and feel empowered to raise concerns about unsafe working conditions. And through our enforcement, we want to bring about culture change so that health and safety isn't a cost of doing business. It has to be a core value of doing business. Last year, I got to share this day with many of you. To those who were here then, thank you for coming again. I learned from you how important it is that we gather to remember, and how this community that can come together to share grief, stories, and memories, as painful as it can be, also provides some comfort. On this Workers' Memorial Day, as we remember the lives lost, please know that we grieve with you, we hold your stories and memories with you, and my team will do everything we can to stop each preventable death on duty. We at the Department of Labor will continue to fight for each worker's right to a safe workplace.
I want to again thank Acting Secretary Sue for taking the time to record those comments for us. And it is now my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce a real champion of workers' rights and worker health and safety, the leader of the nation's largest confederation of labor unions, AFL-CIO President Liz Shuler.
Well, good afternoon, and I just want to thank Tanya. I think there's a chorus in the room, and the teams that have worked really hard on this event, and I'm honored to be here to represent the working people of the AFL-CIO, which many of you know is an umbrella of 60 labor unions, 12.5 million working people, and I bring our support and our resolve into the room as I'm looking at the families, just knowing our beloved workers who have died senselessly and who have lost their lives, and it shouldn't be this way. And I've taken in I'm just looking at all the photos, and I was here with you last year, many of you, and I just had to be here again this year. Because it is so important to continue to uplift the stories and not sweep this under the rug, as we've been talking about this morning or this afternoon. So I just want to say thank you to UMWF. I want to thank Doug. I want to thank Chris. I'm here with my brother Cecil Roberts, who you'll hear from the Mine Workers Union. But I'm standing here again today. I did this last year. We have a report each year that it's our Death on the Job report, and we call it the toll of neglect. And we produce this report every year. We should not have to. But we're here again. We've been putting this out since 1992 for 33 years. And every chart that is in this report, every data point is a story. And as was said, it's a husband, a wife, a father, a mother, aunt, uncle, child, who kissed their loved ones goodbye when they left for work and then never made it home that night, or ultimately lost their lives as a consequence of years of unsafe working conditions, too. It happens later. And I just want to be clear about what this report says. That working people are still paying the price every single day for the greed and the negligence of corporations. Corporations who send us out there in 115-degree heat or into places with asbestos or onto dangerous factory floors, just so they can make more profits. And Black and Latino workers are still disproportionately losing their lives, in fact, at the highest rates that we have seen in 15 years. And we are going the wrong way, with the job fatality rates rising again this year overall. There is no reason that should be the case. In a country as rich as ours, and with the technology and the capacity that we have, and yet that is the case. Because there are companies and executives out there who put their bonuses ahead of our lives. I'm angry. And I know a lot of people in this room are angry. But we have to channel that anger into action. Let our grief fuel our fight for change. And I'm so grateful to our partners in the Biden administration for their resolve, for standing up and using their power to make change for our workers. Because even just in the time that I was here from last year, we have done a lot. Clarifying workers' rights to choose their own representative during OSHA inspections, right? Having that independent voice. Reducing silica exposure, as Chris said, for our mine workers. Banning and phasing out asbestos. Maximizing penalties to deter bad actors. Increasing inspections and enforcement. Engaging families who have lost loved ones with an OSHA liaison, Tanya, right, to actually advocate and bring that voice forward every single day. But everyone in this room knows that we have to go further. We need stronger deterrence. We need more resources to reach vulnerable workers. We need laws that aren't written by corporate America, but are written by and for workers. And we need to recognize our own power. If you look at the history, it shows us what's possible. Like back in 1989, when the labor movement worked with allies and families to create this day, this annual commemoration, because we know how powerful storytelling is, and we need to get those stories out there to raise our collective consciousness in this country. And when the labor movement marshaled all its resources and strength to drive the creation of OSHA and MSHA and continue to fight to defend the critical work that these agencies do and the impact they have made on people's lives. History tells us we can make this change. And thinking back on the way that our unions and our collective bargaining agreements have evolved and changed and leveraged protections to help keep workers safe. Most people don't realize that 15 out of the 20 states with the highest levels of unions are also the states with the lowest rate of workplace fatalities. So that is not just a coincidence, because the union gives workers more power to speak out and not fear losing their jobs if they raise safety concerns. So we owe it to every one of our brothers, our sisters, our siblings that we have lost to keep fighting for safety at work with everything we have every single day. And we owe it to every worker in this country on the job right now, fighting for their safety and dignity. And that's exactly what we will keep doing together. Thank you so much.
So I have the great pleasure and honor of introducing a friend and a champion for workers, for economic and social justice, the United Mine Workers of America International President Cecil Roberts. He's fought tirelessly to protect the safety and health of workers and miners, health care, pensions across the board for members of his union. President Roberts has served as the president of the UMWA for nearly 3 decades, representing more than 50,000 active and retired miners and workers and other industries across the United States and Canada. President Roberts is a 6th-generation coal miner who grew up in a UMWA household on Cabin Creek in Kanawha County, West Virginia. Both of Roberts' grandfathers were killed in mines. President Roberts deeply believes that it's a fundamental right that every worker deserves a healthy and safe job, and we're proud to continue working alongside him in that fight. And I just was going to point out 2 other things real quick about President Roberts. One, I thought about this earlier as I said, we were spending times with the families, and earlier I mentioned a couple mining disasters, and there have been mining disasters in this country where the mine workers didn't represent the workers at the mine, but after the disaster, they were there and they represented some of the families and they provided support and they helped with investigations and things. So I wanted to note that, even though they were not members of the UMWA. The other thing that's worth noting too, and we just spent some time with President Roberts last week with our silica rule, and he's seen accidents, occupational illness, all his entire career, and I'm really excited, and I think it's very fortunate. We're all fortunate that he's here to talk today, and he's also been a chair of the Occupational Safety and Health Committee at the AFL. And again, just like to invite President Roberts to the stage to share a few words with us. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say it's an honor to be here today. And I think the focus here is directed in the right way, and that's to focus on those who have lost their lives or been injured in the workplace. And I want to talk to you just a little bit. I've had 53 years of experience in this, and before that, I had some direct experience with respect to people not being able to come home from the job. My first dangerous job was a soldier in Vietnam. And most of us in Vietnam were 19 years old. And those of us who were fortunate enough to come home struggled with this. I was in the infantry, and seeing 19-year-olds die on a regular basis is just not what a human being was built to do. But one of the things we do in our union every single year, and I want to make some recommendations. I'll be a little bold here today. No one has to do any of these things, but find some way for your loved ones to never be forgotten. I believe as long as we talk about those who've passed away, they're still with us. They'll never leave us. They're here with us today. Some of you would not be here today if it wasn't for that. So one of the things that we do in our union as Vietnam veterans, we go to that wall once a year, and we clean that wall. Because there's 58,000 people in there should never be forgotten. They gave their lives so that the color guard can march up the middle of this aisle. They'll never be forgotten. This is kind of biblical to us. It's kind of Christian-like to us to do that. But I wanted to go ahead. This is for you, not me. But let me just suggest some things to you. The Upper Big Branch Mine was mentioned here a few minutes ago, and Chris, I thank you so much for mentioning that. And Doug, and thank you for what you do. Doug used to work for us. Chris was supported by us for this position. The people singing over here, I know half of them, and when you're old, you got a lot of friends, right? But I just want to talk about Upper Big Branch for a second. They say in West Virginia, everybody knows everybody else, and there's some truth to that. Tommy Davis played Little League baseball and football for me. Tommy was in that mine that day, but he was fortunate enough to make it out. He was about 200 feet from getting out of that mine, and he pretty much collapsed, but people got him out. He was close enough to being out of that mine that he lived. But I'm not so sure Tommy would tell you that was a good thing, because Tommy's son died in that mine, the youngest miner there, is 20 years old. 20 years old died. His brother died in that mine that day. His nephew died in that mine that day. Tommy has never forgotten that, and he's never stopped fighting. The owners of those mines was named Don Blankenship, historically bad operator. But before it was all said and done, and after all the hearings, I want you to know that Don Blankenship went to prison for a year over that, and that's exactly where he should have been, except he should have stayed longer. That's what happens when you never give up. And I'd like to tell you about a story about another mining disaster that made the changes that we've talked about here today. The Farmington mine exploded right in northern West Virginia, not far from the Pennsylvania border. And that wasn't the first explosion that killed a lot of miners. There have been miners died by the hundreds in one mine, 200 and some in one mine. The Monongah explosion was the worst disaster in the history of this country, not just in mining. 371 people died instantly. And it's really closer to 500, because in those days, in 1907, you could take somebody in the mine with you, they didn't have to be employed. And most of those miners that died in that mine were immigrants from Italy. And they like to never found enough priests to conduct the services and enough caskets to bury these people. And many of these miners had not brought their families from Italy with them. So this was horrible. But the country never passed a single law over that disaster. Disasters in Illinois, one right after another, hundreds of them at a time. Not one single piece of legislation, not one, in Congress to protect coal miners. I was looking at a story today. In 1950, 2,000 coal miners died mining coal in this country. Not a single law that was passed to protect them. But what happened at Farmington? This is something you can take with you. There were 78 miners died in 1968 on November the 20th, just like that. The mine exploded and they are all gone in just a blink of an eye. But the difference was, in this tragedy compared to all the other tragedies, people actually owned televisions by 1968. Almost everybody had a television. So people in California watched this. This mine didn't just explode once, it just continued to explode. Smoke pouring out of the shaft. And they put the camera on the widows, staying there by that mine, waiting to see what the story was about, whether or not their loved ones survived. And those widows were angry. And those children who lost their dad that day, they were angry. The people in the community, they were angry. And they made a commitment to one another. We're going to do every single thing that we can do to see that this never happens to anybody else. And you know what? These mothers with 6 kids at home, 10 kids at home, one family had like 15 or 16 kids at home. Can you imagine a widow not knowing she's going to be a widow when her husband went out the door the next morning, the breadwinner's gone, there's no income in the house, and she's got 14 kids? But that community rose up. People in California watching that on television said, Congress needs to act. People in Florida watched that and said, Congress needs to act. Before it was all said and done, the entire nation rallied around these families and these miners and said, this has to stop. And for the first time in 1969, legislation was passed and giving the federal government power and authority to close coal mines and make coal operators do the right thing. That started with people who had never done something like that in their lives. So if you're here today and you think you can't do anything about situations in the future, you can. You possess the strongest voices out there. I can go up on Capitol Hill and talk to I'm blue in the face. But you let somebody that just lost a loved one go up there and testify about what needs to be done to make these mines safer, make these places of work safer, you can do it. If that's not something you want to do, there's other things you can do. Memorials to people who have passed away. I'm leaving here and heading to Benwood, West Virginia, where 100 years ago, dozens and dozens of miners lost their lives. But let me leave you with a couple of thoughts, if I may. By the way, that 69 legislation, the coal industry denied my entire life that such a thing existed as black lung. They had doctors testify that black lung was good for you. If you've got something wrong with you and your breathing's impaired, you must be smoking, because it can't be that the coal industry is doing this. But that legislation for the first time recognized pneumoconiosis, or black lung, as an occupational illness, and hundreds of thousands of miners' lives have been saved. And if they had black lung, they were compensated for it because they got sick working in the coal mines. But let me leave you with 2 stories, if I might, about 2 powerful people. One's John L. Lewis, was the most powerful labor leader that ever lived. But he couldn't get legislation passed. But he was testifying on Capitol Hill back in, I think, the 30s. No TV, but radio. And they had all these CEOs from all these major coal companies there. And the chairman of the committee asked everybody to introduce themselves. They went right down the line. I'm the CEO of Consol. I'm the president of Allen Creek. On and on and on and on until they came to John L. And this is what he said when he got up. And he was so terrific as what are the words here? And it was just a simple statement. He got up, and this was broadcast all over the United States. Mr. Chairman, my name is John Lewis. And by the way, he was an actor too. A lot of people don't know that. He paused. He said, I represent those miners who are still alive, and sat down. He stole that testimony by pointing out people are dying. These folks who just introduced themselves, they don't represent the miners who are still alive. They represent their prophets, right? Then Eleanor Roosevelt, First Lady of the United States, in 1935, went to a coal mine in Ohio, put on a hard hat, put on her light, put on work clothes, got in a man trip, went underground. First of all, it was highly unusual for a first lady to do that. But any woman going underground in 1935 was just an unbelievable feat, right? So she comes out, and of course, miners are dying by the thousands, being killed in the mines. And the press says, Madam First Lady, what would you suggest needs to be done to make the mines safer? She said, there's only two things that you can do to make these mines safer: legislation and union representation. Thank you, and God bless all of you.
Now we'll take a moment and watch a video of some of our fallen workers' family members that share their encounter with you today, and I thank those families for doing that.
My mom was full of life, beautiful, bubbly, a breath of fresh air. She never met a stranger. She was everything to me and my family, a pillar of strength. She was a mother, a grandmother, a sister, an incredible, wonderful friend to all her friends, and she was just spectacular.
Justin was my firstborn son, and he was a funny little kid. He was just a great kid. He would do anything for anybody. If anybody needed help, needed a ride anywhere, he would get up in the middle of the night and give somebody a ride. He would give the shirt off his back to somebody if they needed it. He was all about helping people. He was all about being happy and making sure everybody was taken care of. He had this big laugh that was just infectious, and he would give these big bear hugs, and you never ever forget his bear hugs. And that's kind of what I miss most about him, is those hugs.
Not only was he my youngest brother, I'm the oldest, my only brother, Michael had a very big heart. When I tell you, just willing to go out and help others, Michael was the type of soul that would give you the shirt off of his back. He's a role model. He was a role model, and until this day, he's my angel.
I received a call from a family member saying that my mother was hurt. I immediately get on the phone and contact her employer, and they proceeded to tell me that she was in an accident, but they never informed me that my mom was dead. My mom was actually operating a machine that she was not properly trained, and she was very scared of this machine. There was so many different um, issues with the machine that could have prevented her from being crushed, that was not um, exercised or put in place. So there's so many different things that that could have been prevented, and my mother would be here today.
I was coming out of a conference room after a meeting. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon that day. They estimated that he died between 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning. And so as I was coming out of this conference room, I was paged overhead with a phone call. And the receptionist peeked her head out. She said, "Rena, it's the Danvers police." And so I went in my office, shut the door, took the call, and he asked me some questions. He asked me to verify who I was. And he said, "Is there anybody with you?" And I said, "Yes, my supervisor's here in my office." And he said, "I'm sorry to have to tell you this over the phone, but your son was in a construction accident and he passed away." And I just looked at my supervisor and I said, "My son passed away." And, you know, when you're told something like this has happened to your child, your brain kind of automatically goes to a place where it's going to protect you. And immediately my brain went to, it was instant. It was instant. He was here 1 minute, he was gone the next. He felt no pain. It was instant. But after reading the OSHA report and the medical examiner's report and the police report, I do now know today that it wasn't instant. It took a few minutes, and he knew what was happening to him. And as a mom, I have to live with that. That I couldn't protect him. And that's what my job is. As a mom, you protect your children.
It happened Friday the 13th. When I got the details of what actually happened, I knew nothing about what a coil steel was. I got bits and pieces saying that, bits and pieces of the information stating that he was pinned between two coil steels. And again, I didn't know what that was. I had to research it to find out what is a coil steel. And when I learned what it was, my heart just sank, because just thinking of how that unfolded and how my brother was caught up in that. After learning all of that and trying to break the news to his son, which actually he was in school when all of this took place. When the bus driver arrived at my mom's home, she had already learned what had happened. We had contacted the school and we just told them, hey, you know, when Torres gets on the bus, you know, don't mention anything. The family's here waiting. Everyone was standing outside waiting on him to let him know of the terrible news regarding my brother, which is his father.
I've been through a lot. And it has really affected me still to this day. But on the brighter side, my mom would be so, so, so proud of me for all that I have endured. But even though I was stressed and everything with the depression, I managed to push through and made a difference. I was able to heal partly because I had the will of wanting to help other families that had endured what I had endured, and just wanted to allow my mom's voice to be heard.
There's a huge hole in our family. He was the first grandson. for my parents. And he's forever changed my life. I didn't ask for this life, but it kind of chose me. And I think that turning his loss into something positive is the reason I do what I do. It's because this is my way of honoring him, is to help other families that have suffered a workplace fatality as well. And we all know the impact that it has. The message to families that are going through this is that you're not alone. There are folks like us that are out there that are here to help and support and be there for families to help them navigate this journey.
My brother, his death is not a number. It's not a number to me. And I will continue to fight for those. And I will continue to make sure that it's heard. And that will forever be in my heart as far as helping others.
I want to thank Adriana Crawford, Wendy Sherrills, and Rena Harrington, who is here with us today, for taking the time to share your story and the impact it has had on you and your family and oftentimes the communities. It's not easy sharing your story, and I've heard so many today. It's a true honor to hear them and to listen to them and to understand them. I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. You may never meet the individual that hears your story and listens and makes a change, speaks out, wishes, and ask for safety in their workplace. But I can guarantee someone hears your story. Someone goes to their table and shares that connection that they gained with your story and really makes a difference. So continue to be that voice, and thank you again for sharing your story. At this time, it is with great honor that I welcome the DC Labor Chorus as they sing "We Remember You."
We dedicate this song to all the family and friends who are here. This was written by Steve Jones, our music director, who wrote the song in honor of a member of his family who was killed on the job. There are empty places that cannot be filled. Sometimes something's torn down. You cannot rebuild what you gave. Cannot be replaced. We remember what you did that brought us to this place. We remember you. We remember you. What you gave, what you've done, will not be forgotten. Sing it again, y'all. We remember you. We remember you. What you gave, what you've done, will not be forgotten. There are many who brought us here, who held a dream with vision clear. You have found peace. You will fight no more. We will keep alive what you stood for. We remember you. We remember you. not be forgotten. Joe Hill left us these words when he died. Do not mourn, organize. We remember you. We remember you. What you gave, what you've done, will not be forgotten. Last time, y'all. We remember you. We remember you. What you gave, what you've done, will not be forgotten.
Thank you very much to the DC Labor Chorus. Our next guest is a mother from Wisconsin. Not just a mother, an amazing mother that has so much love for her children. She is a mother that has taken her tragic loss and has become a voice of power, strength, dedication, love, and support to many. It is true honor to introduce you today to Stacy Sebald.
Thank you so much, Tanya, and you were phenomenal, sir. You very uplifting and powerful, and boy, would I love to get up on those steps with you one day. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start by saying thank you very much to OSHA for inviting me to be your guest speaker for this year's Workers' Memorial Day ceremony. This is truly a great honor for me to be up here and beyond special and important. When I was asking Tanya what my speech should all entail, she said that part of it was to share who Mitchell was and, of course, his story. To try to sum him up, everything about him in 5 minutes, in a 5-minute speech will never do justice to the amazing man he was. I could sit here literally all day long, and many of you know I could talk all day long, and sharing just funny and great stories with you about who my son was, from the memories that I have with him and from so many other memories that people have shared with me after he was killed. But I'm going to try my hardest to not only honor him here today to the best of my abilities, but also to honor all our fallen workers. Everything about Mitchell was so vibrant. His personality, his smile, his laughter, everything about him would just literally light up a room no matter where he went. He was one of those individuals you were just drawn to. He always seemed to stand out in a crowd and carried himself with great confidence. He also seemed to be a walking magnet for chicks, because everywhere he went with that handsome face and smile and personality, it literally just sucked in and drew in the ladies. And in fact, my dad had literally nicknamed him in high school the Chick Magnet. He was a phenomenal and natural-born athlete, had a passion for playing soccer, and was a huge and avid Nike shoe connoisseur, collector, and seller, or flipper, like they call them. They flip shoes. One of the most reliable, accountable, and once-in-a-lifetime friends, and he was never afraid to always stand up for the underdog. Most importantly, he remained genuinely himself no matter what the situation. He had a very special and unique bond with every single one of my family members. He was my dad's fishing buddy, my mom's basketball watching partner, my daughter's best friend, and younger brother she always protected and looked after growing up. Vincent's big brother and role model for who he looked up to and adored, and I could go on and on with describing my son. In June of 2019, Mitchell had just proudly graduated from high school, but having no desire whatsoever to attend more 4 years in college because he could not wait to get out of that joint, he said, until he knew exactly what he wanted to do. He was simply taking any side work he could find. He found out through a friend of his at the time that a farmer he already knew was looking for some help. So Mitchell started working here and there, helping out that farmer for extra cash. On the morning of November 11th, 2019, my son, Mitchell McDaniel, was sent to perform a job that he never performed once before. To go clean out the bottom 5 feet of silage that was compacted down in an old concrete silo on a 3rd-generation farm. Not only had he never done that job, he was also sent to go do it all alone, by himself, with no training whatsoever. Then to top that all off, the employer never bothered to cut the power. The auger was left running the entire time. It was a completely exposed, unguarded, and unprotected auger. Nor was the lockout tagout that was on the side of that silo attached ever implemented. This was an employer who was not new at all to farming, as he had worked on that same farm most of his life as a kid and then had now owned it. I will not get into a lot of details pertaining to my son's fatality. If anybody wants to know more about that, they are more than welcome to talk to me at another time, because I have friends and family that I know will be viewing this. But from the fact that I was able to hold my son's hands the day after at the funeral home, see his handsome face one last time and give him one last hug, in addition to seeing the inside of that silo on my prior and only visit to the farm on December 4th, 2019, he did not reach into the auger like we were informed to go grab something that they speculated he had dropped, because it was the entire lower half of his body from the waist on down that had been caught in that auger. A mother does not need to read a police report to know exactly what happened. Nor did I even need to. There was something in my gut that had told me to even go out and check, because my son was all alone in that farm that day. Only God was with him, and only God knows what really happened. So I had thought that I owed it to my son, and that's why I went out there on that December 4th with the farmer's permission to go look for myself. I believe that he slipped, because that silage gets extremely slippery inside there. When it's compacted down, he lost his footing and fell, where the auger then quickly grabbed a hold of his feet, his ankles, then his legs, and continued to further pull him in up to his waist. If my son losing his life at the age of 19 was not horrible enough in itself, and I hear this from so many other family members, I found out about 2 days after, that the workman's comp payout was only $5,000. This is a huge problem across the nation at a state level. Then, to add even more insult to injury to my family and to my son, his fatality was never even extended the courtesy of an OSHA investigation whatsoever. They were there wanting to investigate his fatality within an hour from our local area office, or OSHA's local area office, which is only a 45-minute drive away. But all because of the OSHA Appropriations Act 02-00-051, which was implemented back in 1976 by Congress. That exemption was what prevented OSHA from being able to get in there and investigate. A lot of times I know that OSHA gets the bad rap. I cannot say enough about Doug, about Frank, about Jim Frederick. These guys, they have a heart, they care. Robert Boniak, David Schott, my area and assistant area directors in Appleton office, these guys are amazing, they care. But when there are laws there in place, OSHA can only do so much. And it's not until you start checking into things like yourself, Google has become my BFF. Google's my best friend. I got online, I started researching, I met with those guys, I talked with them, and they're just all been amazing to help. And you start finding out what so many things that are wrong in workplace safety. There is currently a rider in place which completely prohibits and prevents federal OSHA from investigating any small farm workplace incident, even a fatality, and this strictly applies to agricultural. If that farmer or employer has 10 or less employees on the books, that exemption needs to go. It is completely irrelevant how many people work at any establishment. No employer should ever be handed a free pass or a get out of jail free card for a fatality in the workplace. It is utterly absurd and completely unjustifiable. And we all need to work together in getting this changed, because Mitchell has not been the only young person to get killed in an auger incident and not allowed an investigation. I think 48 years of this going on has been enough. My son's story is just one of the so many painful and horrible stories out there to be told by family members of workplace incidents where there is little or zero safety measures ever being implemented, and it never ends. You think that your story, it couldn't get any worse? This morning, we met with all these amazing families that came in here, which I'm so happy that you guys did. I hate that you're here for these reasons, but I'm so happy that you're here. And what really makes me sad and what really ticks me off is that as we're sitting here right now, there's 15, by the end of today, 50 more lives are going to be lost. And why? The vast majority of these, if not all, are due to very minimal or zero safety being implemented at all. You've heard a lot of statistics from Julie Schuh and Liz Schuler, but that our nation's fatalities are increasing, not decreasing. In 2022, a total of 5,486 workers were fatally injured. That is a 5.7 increase from the previous year. I think that's pathetic in a country with as much wealth and technology as we have, and that's why it is so critical that we individually and collectively do everything we possibly can to make workplaces safe for our loved ones. These are human beings' lives we are talking about. These are not a single one of our fallen workers are replaceable. These are the most important people in our lives. Someone's parents, grandparents, husbands, wives, sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews, our children. You've heard everybody be saying that same thing over and over again. I want everyone today to take a look outside, whether they're here in DC or whether they are watching, and pay attention to everything and everyone around you. You will see the DC transportation service, Uber drivers, tons of eating establishments, museums. What are they all comprised of? Your workers. Workers who chauffeur us around to wherever we need to go, prepare and cook our meals, put fresh bedding on our hotel beds, fix us up some stellar cocktails in the bars. And this very building that employs how many people with jobs? How did this building get here? Construction workers, plumbers, electricians built it. This country would never survive without your workers. It just wouldn't. They all make this country what it is today and forever will. So for those who've all lost their lives building and making this country what it is today, this entire week of events is so special, huge, and extremely important to not only be able to honor and recognize all of them, it is a huge support system for us. It keeps us going. It gives us motivation. It gives us drive. I'm not sure if many of you out there realize all the time, effort, thought, attention to detail, and love that Tanya puts into everything she does. I had the great pleasure of knowing her for over 4 years now, and when she was still with USMWF. And I would never have known that wonderful and amazing organization existed, nor would I be where I'm at today in all my areas of life if it weren't for Tanya reaching out to me shortly after Mitchell was killed. Our organization, the ladies that I've met, they have been a lifeline for me, as I know it is for so many of us. She is one of the kindest, caring, hardworking, determined women you will ever meet. And Frank, I am grateful you stole her from us. Because, I love you guys, but there's no way OSHA men could have pulled this all off on their own. They just couldn't have. You guys just couldn't have. I'm sorry. You needed a woman for this. And only you, no one else. So, but these guys, like I said, they are what our government needs more of, and they do not get the credit and recognition they deserve, so thank you so much. I'm going to end with a quote. I'm a big fan of quotes, and I came across one that was most fitting for today. Mr. Henry Ford said, "Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success." There is not a doubt in my mind that the more we all keep working together, the more great things that we will accomplish and transform so much of what is wrong and make it right. But most importantly, making it so that all of our workers and loved ones come home safe. Thank you.
Amazing. I'd like to welcome Chaplain Kimberly Willis.
Hello. Hello. All right. Does anybody else need to take a deep breath? It's a lot that we're carrying. The fortunate thing is that we are in community with one another. that we're not carrying any of this alone. If you could, for just one moment, take a look around the room, to your left, to your right, behind you. I want you to see your community, your extended family, if you will, because grief has no time limit. So it doesn't matter if you lost your loved one 10 years ago or just yesterday. Your heart doesn't know the difference. So make sure that we stay in community, because that is where strength resides in each of you. If you are able, please stand for our benediction. If you're willing, please grab the hand of the person that is next to you. I just want you to squeeze that hand. Feel that hand. Do you feel it? You feel the warmth? Do you feel the strength? Because it is together that we get to do this. So join me in a prayer that is commensurate with your faith, your tradition, and your highly held belief. Spirit of compassion and love, we gather here today to remember and honor the workers who have tragically lost their lives while diligently serving in various industries. We pray that your grace abides with each family member, with each friend, with each colleague who is yet grappling with this untimely loss. Eternal One, we pray for strength and comfort as we seek solace in the memories and legacies left behind by loved ones. We pray for all workers around the world, especially those in high-risk industries, that they may be protected from harm and danger as they carry out their duties. Please guide and empower the leaders and employees of this great organization who strives tirelessly to ensure the safety of workers and for the safe environments where every worker can return home safely to their families each day. Blessed Spirit, imbue each of us who have been impacted by this loss with a loss, with wisdom, strength, and courage to fight for better, to fight for safer, to fight for right, so that we no longer need a fatality report or a call in the middle of the night or tears streaming down our face. We pray that the souls of those we love rest in peace and that their memories be a blessing to all that know them. Amen.
Thank you very much. As our ceremony concludes, we want to thank all of our speakers and performers for joining us as we honored, remembered, and recognized the men and women across the country that went to work and never came home to their families. To the families that joined us here today, and those that are watching us live from Florida, Louisiana, New York, Ohio, and across the country, please know you are in our thoughts today, tomorrow, and for days to come. You are not alone. There are many resources out there to help you in your time of need. To the employees, the employers, the laborers, please make safety a top priority. We all play an important role in workplace safety and health. In memory and honor of all of our fallen workers you saw today and the 1,000 more, we ask you to take an extra step to make sure everyone goes home to their families. Together, we can all make a difference. We wish you all a safe and healthy year, and thank you for taking the time today to remember our fallen workers. Thank you. I would like to invite those that are here in person to follow us out to the Veterans Plaza for the wreath laying ceremony. Families, you're welcome to grab your loved ones' pictures if you would like and carry them out with us. Thank you.